she doesn't want to sing. There you go. Oh, you know, okay.
Still need more time. Probably next week. Or maybe tomorrow. Sorry.
That's what I meant.
You can do the let's know.
Jai Hare Krishna. Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Ganaganata Prapta Sakalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shringara Tanma Niramajanado Juktasya bhaktamsa niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasada Swatmana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shangan Kridvaiva Tripte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shiradikama Vabhayarapara Madhura Leela Gunarupa Namna Shri Radhika Pratikshana Danalalupasya Vande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam Ne kunja yuno rati keli siddhai jayali bheri jokke apekshaneya ne kunja yuno rati keli siddhai jayali bheri jokke apekshaneya tatrati dakya atibalabhasya vande gorashi Charanara Vrindam Sachadharitvena Shamastashashre Uktastathabha Gataiva Sadhvi Tasya Vande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam Kinto Prabhuja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasha Prasada Bhagavad Prasada Yasha Prasada Yayam Stuvam Tasya Yashastrin Sandhyam Vande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam Dhyayam stuvam tasya yasastrin sandhyam Vande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Gora Shri Charanara Nama O Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Vachatadishatadine Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Vasatarishata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shivadvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Ram. Hariyaraya Namah, Krishna Jadavaya Namah. Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah. Gopal Govindaram Shimadhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav, Radhe Radhe Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Netai Gaura Haribo, 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 Netai Gaura Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Haribo Nitai, Pura Pramanande Haribo, Jaya Vishnupada Param Saprabhajakacharya Suttara Sarasishimat, Iskon Pratishta, Viviti Samstapakacharya, Vaishnava Siramani Gaura Priya Jana Krishna Prema Bhakti Datta, Padita Pavana, His Divine Grace, Abhacharvina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai, Shri Gaurya Guru Varga Pati Udhar Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai, Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai, Prem Si Kaho Si Krishna, Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shraddheta Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai, Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Jai Prema Nama Sankirtaneka Janaka, Prema Purushottama Shri Satchidananda Shriman Gauranga Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gauru Hari Mahavrana Avatar Ki Jai, Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai, Yoga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai, Brihat Midanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Goputna Radha Kund, Syama Kund Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Brajabim Vrindavan Mathurudam Ki, The Lordship Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai, Shri Mayapur Navadvip Eka Chakradham Ki Jai, Paramakaruna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki, Shri Purushottama Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki, Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu, Srimati Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki, Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagavan Ki, Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki, Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki, Bolo Shri Mati Radharani Ki, Shamaveta Bhakta Vindi Ki, Jai Nitai Gauri Pramanandi Haribol. All glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies, all glories, glories to Shri Guru Shri Gaura.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste
Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladala Dadaine. Ranyaka Shipurvakshaha. Shilatankana Kalaye.
Jaya Silatanka Nakalaye.
Ito Nasimha Parato Nasimha.
Ito Nisimha Parato Nisimha.
Yato Yato Yami Tato Nasimha.
Jaya Jata Jato Jami Tato Nisimha.
Narasimha 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 Madim Sharanam Prapade.
Narasingha Mati Sharanam Prapade.
Tava Kara Kamala Varena Kam Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Mringa Kita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Baba Kara Kamala Varena Adabhuta Shena Dalita Hiranyakashipu Anabhinga Desavadita Naradi Loka Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Jagadisha
Jaya Keshavadrita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव
Jaya Nrsimhadev, Jaya Nrsimhadev, Jaya Nrsimhadev, Jaya Nrsimhadev.
जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Shri Bhakti Pata Sarvigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagavan ki Jai. Jai Bhakta Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj ki. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Ke Savasatya Vishnu Bhakti Pradedeve Sattavatai Namo Namah. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Ke Savasatya Vishnu Bhakti Pradedeve Sattavatai Namo Namah. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Ke Savasatya Krishna Bhakti Pradedeve Sattavatai Namo Namah. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai. Okay.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah.
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo Ye Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Prabhu Heya Pilasi.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah.
એ તો મારા શરણ લોય તારા વાંચ પૂર્ણા હોય
Je tumhara sharanala tara vancha purana.
કૃપા કોરી કોરો તારે વૃંદાવનવાસી
Tumi kripa kare kara tare vrindavan.
मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो वास।
मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियोवास।
नयने हेरिबो सदा जुगल रूप राशि। ए निवेदन धारो सखीरानुगाता करो। सेवा अधिकार दिए करो निज दासी। दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा होय। श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी। दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा होय। श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी। नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी। नमो नमः यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी
जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी।
नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल।
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद।
जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव
जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदेवी सत्य बताए नमः नमः। Vrindayi tulasi devai priyaye kesava satya Vishnu bhakti prade devi Shattavatai namo namaha. Vrindai tulasi devai priyai kesava satya Krishna bhakti prade devi Shattavatyai namo namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki. Oh Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavidamsas of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna prays, may I always sing in love Shri Radha and Govinda. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme devotees with dedicated life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, Lord Shiva or Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scripture or scriptures in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna is one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activities karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of holy name. And 10. Do not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devoted with the Lord. They are just like desire trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanamajanam Bhava Mahadavagnivapanam Shri Akari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Patipadam Punamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Parampara Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpitani Amitta Smarane Nakala Hitadrushi Tava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idishamiya Janina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam vachakari shakamaye mama janmani janmanishwari bhakti rahaitu kitvayi ainandatanu jakinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam buddho kripaya tava pada pankaja stita dhuri sadrisham vichintaya Nayanam galorashudharya Varanam gadagadarudhaya gira Pulake nishitam vapukada Tavanama grahane bhavisyati Jugaitam nimishena Chakrusha pravrushaitam Sunyaitam jagata sarvam Govinda virahena me Asli shava padaratam pinastumam Adarshanar marmahatam karotuva Jata tathava vidadhatu lampato Mat pranathastu saivana para Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam ki. Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shmate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunnavadi Patsatyari Satarine. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditioned life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it sprays the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which all is anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested with your transcendental energies. They are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause that divorce from service birth to birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet some or other I'm following this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and will the hairs of my body stand on the endless recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He's completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam ki jai. Shri Guru Vandana Mangala Charan ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jota Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabhadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakambitam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunnavari Pasatyari Satarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhana Videvi Deitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhurjojala Primadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shimurtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudha Posidanta Dvantarine Namagur Kishoraya Sakchabheragya Murtaye Vipralambhara Sambodhe Parambujayate Namaha Namo Noraya Sakchiranandanamine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumitsvam Nirdesha Sajana Priya Vaishnavo Sarvabhuma Sri Jagannathayate Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Paritanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavaranayo Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnayo Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauritvishe Namaha Panchatattvamakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavatara Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanto Namostute Jayatam Suratopangor Mama Mandamater Gatir Massarvasya Param Bhojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Vindaranya Kalpadumadha Shmara Nagara Shingasanastu Shmaradha Shila Govinda Devo Prishtali Visheva Manushmarami Shmara Sarasarambi Bam Shvata Tatastitam Karshan Venu Swanar Gopir Gopinata Shriyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Brusabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Piye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Vandan Pranam Ki Jai.
Shrimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pucharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Dhistarni Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So yesterday we discussed how to purify society and establish Krishna consciousness in the modern world. We're mostly discussing how to purify society, and to finish that discussion I want to go over one more point, and that is First Canto, 17th chapter, 43rd and 44th verse, where it says, "The most fortunate Emperor Maharaj Parikshit, who was entrusted with the kingdom of Hastinapura by Maharaj Yudhisthira, when he desired to retire to the forest, is now ruling the world with great success due to his being glorified by the deeds of the kings of the Kuru dynasty." So once Maharaj Parikshit took over from Maharaj Yudhisthira, a very wonderful thing happened. That is that a huge number of sages came together in Naimisharanya, which is north of Lucknow. Any of you have been to Naimisharanya? Okay. As soon as Maharaj Parikshit disappeared, they started a 1,000-year sacrifice, or 1,000 years of trying to discussing what would be the best thing to solve the problems of Kali Yuga, because Kali Yuga was beginning, and as soon as Maharaj Parikshit disappeared, Kali Yuga took a strong foothold, in the material world. And so they discussed for 1,000 years what would be the best way to counteract the negative effects of Kali Yuga and help people in this difficult age. And some contemporaries of Lord Baladeva, the elder brother of Krishna, they also visited the sacrifice place, or Naimisharanya. And also, Prabhupada says that although Kali Yuga has developed enormously, those sages, they decided that the best way to counteract the effects of Kali Yuga is by teaching the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to the public, and in getting them engaged in devotional service. And so the modern, let's say, administrators and leaders of society, they want to get rid of corruption and all the misery that's in Kali Yuga, but they don't know how to do it. In fact, they contribute to it getting worse rather than helping it to be diminished. And therefore, instead of closing houses of gambling, instead of closing houses of prostitution, instead of closing down drug houses, places where they can drink liquor, things like that, they're giving licenses for these activities to take place. And therefore, instead of driving out or purifying corruption in the government and sinful activities amongst the people, it's just getting worse. So you can't want one thing but not do anything to get that. You have to take all the steps that are necessary to get that one thing that you want. That is purification of the society and consciousness of the people. So Prabhupada says, if we want to drive out corruption from the state, we must first of all organize society to accept the principles of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, truthfulness, and mercy. And to make the condition favorable, we must close all places of gambling, drinking, prostitution, and falsity. Well, that would mean you have to close all the universities and the high schools and all those schools, because they're all teaching false things, right? And so that would be a good thing. So Prabhupada says, these are some of the practical lessons from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then 117:45 says, Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu, is so experienced that by dint of his expert administration and patronage, it has been possible for you to perform a sacrifice such as this. So, the brahmanas and the sannyasis that came together for that 1,000-year yajna, or sacrifice, they were inspired and supported by Maharaj Parikshit. And it's not easy to get thousands of great sages to do a 1,000-year yajna. It requires a lot of organization to do that. But Maharaj Parikshit was an expert in how to inspire people to do the right thing. So Prabhupada says the brahmanas and the sannyasis are expert in the spiritual advancement of society, whereas the kshatriyas or administrators are expert in the material peace and prosperity of human society. Both of them are pillars of all happiness. And therefore, they are meant for full cooperation for common welfare. Maharaj Parikshit was experienced enough to drive away Kali from his field of activities and thereby make the state receptive to spiritual enlightenment. So how did he do that? He did it by doing massive festivals and massive sankirtan. And that's what we're beginning to do also. Massive food distribution, prasadam distribution, massive sankirtan, massive festivals. So in that way, you can inspire many, many people to think twice about what is actually the purpose of life. Prabhupada says, if the common people are not receptive, it is very difficult to impress upon them the necessity of spiritual enlightenment. Austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, the basic principles of religion, prepare the ground for the reception of advancement in spiritual knowledge. And Maharaj Pariksit made this favorable condition possible. That's what the leaders of ISKCON should do, or they're trying to do, to make the reception of advancement in spiritual knowledge something, prepare the ground for the reception of spiritual knowledge. So, and Maharaj Pariksit made it made this favorable condition possible, and that's what we should do. Thus, the rishis of Naimisharanya were able to perform the sacrifices for 1,000 years. In other words, without state support, no doctrines of philosophy or religious principles can progressively advance. There should be complete cooperation between the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas for this common good, even up to Maharaj Ashoka, the saint. That was about 2,500 years ago. Maharaj Ashoka, who was a Hindu, but he converted to Buddhism, and he became a bhikshu, a monk, a Buddhist monk, and took complete vow of poverty after being king of almost the whole world. And this inspired people like anything when they saw such a big man become a sadhu. And in the same way, Lord Buddha was sufficiently supported by King Ashoka. Yeah, so they both were living around the same time, and so Buddha was supported by Maharaj Ashoka, or King Ashoka. And then later on, maybe when Buddha disappeared, he renounced the kingdom and became a bhikshu, or a monk. And thus, his particular cult of knowledge was spread all over the world. Meaning, Buddha's teachings were spread all over the known world at that time, which was the entire world. So, this is an explanation of how society can be purified. There must be the cooperation of the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas, because the Brahmanas are symbols of genuine, bona fide spiritual education, and the Kshatriyas keep the peace and prosperity of society going on by protecting the people and the saints. We see in the time of the Lord Ramachandra, Vishwamrita Muni went and asked Dasarath to borrow his two sons, Rama and his brother, Lakshman. And he took them. They were still relatively young, about 16 years old. He taught them, using certain weapons. And then he inspired them to go and kill Rakshasas. And Ramachandra by himself, although he's only 16 years old, he killed over 16,000 Rakshasas single-handedly. And that began the problem with Ravana, because he killed some of Ravana's sons, and and Lakshman defaced or injured Ravana's sister, Surpanaka, basically cut her nose off. She was already ugly, so it didn't really hurt her that much, but it just added to her ugliness. And then later on, we see how Ravana kidnaps Sita, and there's a whole big war. Okay, so now today we're going to hear more about the false ego. Why is that? Well, because there's a lot more information of how to purify society. You would have to also purify the false ego of people. So this is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 26th verse, 26th chapter, 26th verse. It says, this false ego is characterized as the doer, as an instrument, and as an effect. It is further characterized as serene, active, or dull, according to how it is influenced by the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And then it says, ahankara, or false ego, is transformed into the demigods, the controlling directors of material affairs. All right, so to understand the false ego, it's a big subject, one of the biggest subjects that you can learn about, because it's a gigantic thing in Kali Yuga. Maybe in previous yugas it wasn't so important, but now it's on steroids all over the world. We can see it with, Elon Musk and Biden and Trump and Putin and Zelensky and this one and that one, everybody, your neighbor, yourself, it's all over the place. It's out of control. So it's very good to understand what it is, how it's functioning and influencing people, and how it can be purified. So the false ego is characterized as the doer, as an instrument, and as an effect. It is further characterized as serene, active, or dull, according to how it is influenced by the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So you see, our entanglement in the material world is based on being controlled by the modes of material nature. We are not actually independent. And the modes of material nature are controlled by Krishna with the help of the demigods. So you have goodness, passion, and ignorance. So Lord Brahma, who's a demigod, is in charge of passion. Lord Shiva is in charge of ignorance. And Lord Vishnu is in charge of goodness. So Lord Vishnu is not a demigod. He's expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But you cannot give the responsibility of maintenance of society to someone who's passionate or ignorant, because they'll make a mess of it. And we're seeing that all over the world today. These passionate and ignorant people are being elected as leaders of society, and they're making a mess of everything. So therefore, Lord Vishnu, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is responsible for maintenance, because maintenance is harder than creation and destruction. To maintain something properly, like the whole universe, for example, or let's say your car, it's not easy. There's always something going wrong. Or maintain your house, there's always something going wrong. There's a rat in your house. How do you get in? You don't know. You got to find it. You have to hire someone to find the hole that the rat made to get into your house, right? So that puts people in anxiety, because the rat starts pooping and peeing in your house, and it smells. And if you put some poison, all right, the rat ate it and died. Now the rat's stinking the whole house, right? So, because it's decomposing in your house. So you see, there's a lot of problems, or there's a leak on your roof, and it's beginning to corrode things, or there are ants in your house, or there are cockroaches, or there's so many things that go wrong in the house, or because of the snow, it broke something. So there's so many things going wrong all the time. So maintenance requires continual, let's say, paying attention and repairing things that are breaking down. So that is not entrusted to Brahma or to Shiva. It's entrusted to Lord Vishnu. But you can say that the three modes are under the influence of the three modes are supernatural forces that control the activities of people. Now, if you tell someone this, let's say you're on Sankirtan, say, did you know that there are supernatural forces that are controlling you? They say, what? What crazy stuff are you talking about, man? What are you smoking? They wouldn't believe you, but it's a fact, and once you realize factual things, then you can make solutions. But if you even refuse to accept the facts, then how are you going to make a solution, right? So nowadays they say, well, the problem is not, like I remember at the Veg Fest, this couple, husband and wife, came. They're both teachers in I think Issachar, and they were looking at the first panel, and then at one point, you know how I always talk about education. So I started telling them, the problem, I said, because of all these mistakes that people are making, is the educational system. And they got really upset. And I didn't let down. I said, I said, you're wrong. I said, no, it's because, there's a breakdown of the family. I said, that's a corollary effect. But the real reason is you guys are not educating kids properly. You're teaching them all these nonsense theories that are false. So obviously, they were upset. But I didn't let down. Why should I let down? I mean, okay, yeah, the breakdown of the family. Where did the breakdown of the family come from? It came from all these crazy theories that are out there. One of the main things that has influenced the families in America is divorce and welfare for single moms. Because when you have a single mom and you have a lot of kids, the government will give you a lot of money. And therefore, many people purposely got divorces in order to get the money. And they continued, and the women continued having kids, especially blacks, but also whites also. They just kept popping out kids every year, because the more kids you have, the more money you get from the government. But you have to be divorced. So then, the ladies got divorced. They started popping out kids every year with different men, not always the same man, right? And then those kids are not properly educated, they're not properly taken care of, and they are Varna Shankara, children, unwanted children who are not educated properly, and they just create havoc in society. Right? They join gangs and they engage, as teenagers or even younger in sinful activities and illegal activities. Okay, so Prabhupada says this ahankara, or false ego, is transformed into the demigods, the controlling directors of material affairs. So not only you have two demigods that are in charge of two of the three supernatural forces that control living entities, that is good, that is passion and ignorance, but you also have demigods who are in charge of the different, let's say, necessities, such as rain and sun and wind, all these things that are necessary for living peacefully in this world. So not only they're in charge of some supernatural forces that force us to do things, but they're also in charge of supplies for the maintenance of human beings. And so therefore it says, as an instrument, the false ego is represented as different senses and sense organs. And as the result of the combination of the demigods and the senses, material objects are produced. In the material world, we are producing so many things, and this is called advancement of civilization. But factually, the advancement of civilization is a manifestation of the false ego. Whoa! The advancement, right, of civilization is a manifestation of the false ego. By false ego, all material things are produced as objects of enjoyment. Yeah. Look at all the new products that come on the market every day. They're to increase sense gratification. Now, would you agree to that? Yeah. All these products that are coming out all the time. And you know, there's publicity for it. Like, you can look it up right now. 20 new products to make your life happy. Look it up on the internet. You'll see. Every day there's 20 new products to make your life happy, to enjoy more sense gratification. So there was this, one day I was talking about one of those products. It was an electronic chair. Go ahead. What does it say?
Just 38 items.
38. Okay. So I mean, the number changes every day. There's new products that come out. What's it say?
It's opening up. Let's see. Anybody ready? Okay.
So one day I was talking about one of those products that it was a chair, and it was being explained or shown on television of a chair where, you know, you're sitting down and some lady's sitting down and she looks really bored, and then she gets a remote control and goes zzz, and then her legs go up. And the farther they went up, the more she had a bigger smile. Right? And then she goes zzz, and then it goes down, right? And then she has, you know, her smile goes away. Then she goes zzz, and the legs go up, and she has a big smile. So I said, look, now this is a complete nonsense product. It's completely useless, and the public and the publicity for it is nonsense also. So everyone was laughing, right? So, you know, after about a couple of seconds, all the laughing stopped. But one lady kept laughing. And I looked at her, I said, Mrs. Patel, I said, why are you laughing so much? She said, my husband just bought that chair. So you see, this is the effect of publicity, right? It's a completely nonsense thing. You know, zit, 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 it goes up and down. So what, right? You can put a sofa in front of you and put your legs up, right? But no, they have to buy this, you know, $1,000 chair that goes zit, 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 like that. You know, this is complete nonsense. Okay, what did you see?
Yeah, mini portable projector. Fox fur throw blanket, extra soft.
Yeah, fox, okay. Extra soft blanket. Right?
Yeah.
More sense gratification when it's extra soft.
Potato USB heated slippers.
Oh, heated slippers. Oh, man, that's... What? Oh, wow. I got to buy those. Walk around the temple.
Waterproof shower speaker.
What?
Waterproof shower speaker.
Shower speaker?
Yeah, it's a list.
Oh, speaker, you know, to hear nonsense in the shower. So you're never separated from the nonsense. You know? On the toilet, in the shower, you know. Okay, what else?
Yeah. Always pan. It's a
What?
clay pan.
A what?
A pan
For
in the
cooking?
kitchen
For cooking?
for cooking. Yeah.
Okay.
And grandma's kitchen candle.
Oh,
Yeah, people are
candle.
after a lot of candles.
Yeah, we need that. Yeah. Well, that's useful. Yeah. If the lights go out, you can put the candle on. But if it's
Others.
made with the paraffin, it's very bad for your health because that it burns and then you get the toxic, let's say, air goes into your body. So you have to be careful what they're made from. If they're made of beeswax, that's okay. But if it's made of paraffin, it's not good for your health. And most of them are made with paraffin because they're cheap. It's cheap. It's a petroleum product. Go ahead.
I can skip this. Urban STEM subscription, like subscribe to the flowers.
What?
Subscribing to flower bouquets.
Are they artificial or real?
They look real.
Okay. Okay, so you see, every day new products are coming on the market, and most of them, and it's all for sense gratification, and it's all mostly you don't really need them. All right, so what did Prabhupada say here? He says, factually, the advancement of civilization is a manifestation of the false ego. By false ego, all material things are produced as objects of enjoyment, meaning objects for diverting your attention from Krishna and giving you some sense gratification, right? Like those puffy slippers, right? You look like I don't know, like a bear or something, big feet, you know. Okay. One has to cease, Prabhupada says, one has to cease increasing artificial necessities in the form of material objects. Can you look on that, on the desk there? I left the, not the thing that says defending Prabhupada's words, but there's another, no, not that one, not, let me see that. What? Yeah, bring that. Not the one that says defending Prabhupada's words. Yeah, so one has to cease increasing artificial necessities in the form of material objects. And it says, one great Acharya, Narottam Das Thakur, has lamented that when one deviates from pure consciousness of Vasudeva, or Krishna consciousness, the person becomes entangled in material activities. The exact words he used are Satsanga Chadi Kainu Asate Vilasa Te Karane Lagila Ye Karma Manda Fansa. This is a bhajan by Narottam Das Thakur, who's a great Vaishnava Acharya. And it says, I have given up the pure status of consciousness because I wanted to enjoy in the temporary material manifestation. Therefore, I have been entangled in the network of actions and reactions. So this is what happens to everybody. As they grow up, they want to, you take your kid to Toys R Us. I think Toys R Us went bankrupt, but it was a very popular place. You take your kids to Toys R Us and they run around and say, oh, I want this one. No, I want this one. Oh, I want this one also. And I want, all these toys, right? So the kids would go crazy there, and then the parents would fill up a whole cart full of toys for the kid. And most of them were junk toys from China, and they would break easily. But, this was part of the culture, especially of Christmas. You get a lot of these junk toys. So, Narottam Das Thakur, he says that I gave up the treasure of love of Krishna and deliberately struggled to become poor. I dived into a host of sinful deeds. I gave up the association of saintly devotees to enjoy myself in the company of the ungodly. Therefore, I am bound up by the snare of karma. I am always drinking the dangerous poison of sense gratification. Thus, I can never absorb myself in the blissful nectar of chanting the glories of Lord Chaitanya. Why am I still living? And what happiness do I have? Narottam Dasa says, why have I not died long ago? This is not only Narottam Das Thakur's lamentation. Now Prabhupada is speaking. If I cannot come in touch, and this is Narottam Das, if I cannot come in touch with Lord Chaitanya and his associates, it would be better for me to die. So Prabhupada writes a purport to this bhajan, and he says, this is a song by Narottam Das Thakur. He says, Gora Pahu Na Bhajiya Mainu. I have invited my spiritual death by not worshipping Lord Chaitanya. Gora Pahu means Lord Chaitanya, and Na Bhajiya, without worshipping. Mainu, I have invited spiritual death. And why have I invited spiritual death? Adane Jatane Karidana Teyaginu. Because I am engaged in something which is useless and have rejected the real purpose of my life. Adama means valueless things, and dana means valuables. So actually, every one of us is neglecting our spiritual emancipation. We are engaged in material sense gratification, and therefore we are losing the opportunity of this human form of body to elevate ourselves to the spiritual platform. This human body is especially provided to the conditioned soul to give him a chance for spiritual emancipation. So anyone who does not care for spiritual emancipation, means liberation, is inviting spiritual death. Spiritual death means to forget oneself, to forget that one is spirit. That is spiritual death. Like animal life. Animal life is full of forgetfulness. The animals cannot be reminded under any circumstances that they are not this body. It is only in this human form of life that one can understand that he is not this body, that he is spirit soul. By chanting Hare Krishna, one can easily understand this fact. In other words, by worshiping Lord Chaitanya, following his principles and ways, and chanting Hare Krishna, one can very easily come to the platform of spiritual understanding. But Narottam Dasa Thakur says on our behalf that we are neglecting this. Therefore, we are inviting spiritual death. Then he says, Prema Ratana Dana Helaya Harainu. Spiritual life means to develop real love. Everyone says love. There are so many signboards, so many books, love, love, but there is no love. This is illusion. It is all lust. Love for intoxication, love for sex, love for this and that. This is going on. Actually, the word love is applicable only with Krishna, with God. To love means to love Krishna. That is spiritual love. And we are created for that purpose. So, that is wanted. Narottam Das says, I could have achieved that transcendental treasure of love, but I was robbed of it because of neglecting to worship Lord Chaitanya. And why has this happened? Apana karma dose apani dubinu. Due to my past misdeeds. Due to our past misdeeds, we get a certain type of body. Everyone who has got a material body has received it due to his past misdeeds. And even his past misdeeds, actually, as long as one gets a material body, there are no pious deeds. Pious deeds means no more material body. Otherwise, it is to be taken as a fact that even Brahma, who is the chief living entity within this universe and has a long, long duration of life and so much power, still he is considered to have performed misdeeds because he has a material body. So, by our misdeeds, we go down and down, getting one body after another. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated that people do not know that by engaging in sense gratification, they are assuring that they will have another material body, and the body is the cause of material pangs or miseries. It is only because I have this body that I feel a headache, a stomach ache, etc. But as soon as we are out of this material body, there are no more material pangs or material miseries. It is simply joyful. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. Prasanatma means joyful. But due to our past misdeeds, we are missing this opportunity. And why is it happening? Satsanga chadi kainu asate vilasa. I have given up the association of devotees and am associating with common nonsense men for sense gratification. Sat means spirit, and asat means matter. Association with non-devotees produces material attachment, and that means implication in material conditional life. So one has to associate with devotees. Sata prasayagan mama virya salvido. One can learn about God only in the association of devotees. Therefore, we are pushing this Krishna consciousness society. You'll find that one who comes to this society and associates with us for a few days or a few weeks becomes Krishna conscious, and soon he comes forward for initiation and further advancement. So association with devotees is very important. But here Narottam Das Thakur laments, Satsanga chadikainu asatye vilasate karane lagilo ye karma bandafans. I have given up the association of devotees and tried to enjoy among the non-devotees. And immediately Maya has caught me and mangled me in the web of fruitive activities. Fruitive activities mean, let's buy this product and we can sell it for this much and we'll make a lot of money. Right? Isn't interesting? There's another company very similar to the Bitcoin fiasco that just went bankrupt. It was worth $800 million. And in 4 or 5 years, the two young guys from England started this company, and they were able to convince investors to invest huge amounts of money in their company. So what was their product? Their product was basically helping people buy tickets to very prominent, let's say, places like the Bahamas and places like that, where there was big name entertainers coming. And so people could buy these expensive tickets, and that included, everything included, the hotel, the travel, everything. And they would be able to meet all these big stars, and the stars would perform. So very quickly, they got huge investors investing $25 million, $50 million in their company, and they were successful. But it was only because they kept getting more investors, not because the company was making money. It was making some money, yes, definitely is making some money, and they had some success, but it was on the base, it was like a Ponzi scheme. They kept getting more investors because people thought, this is a great thing. It's going to become a big, big thing. And it did. At one point, their company was worth $800 million. But every time they would get like $25 million from an investor, they would spend like a third of it on partying. And they would have, they would be having intoxicants and drugs in the workplace and engaged in all kinds of illicit activities for sense gratification. And finally, it collapsed. It just collapsed recently. So you say, I mean, they knew how to play or how to fool the investors. They had a great idea. It was a moneymaker, but they themselves were nonsense to these two brothers. They were relatively young, and they basically ruined the company by sense gratification. Okay, so this is what happens when we become deterred or attracted to materialistic things. Now, what did we just learn? We learned, Prabhupada says here, that he says, but factually, the advancement of civilization is a manifestation of the false ego. By false ego, all material things are produced as objects of enjoyment. So we just look that every day they're coming out with new products, and they're all mostly only for sense gratification, right? So this is basically a result of the false ego. And modern civilization, with all its new inventions and gadgets, are actually detrimental for the people. It just entangles them, takes their attention away from Krishna, and gives them all types of artificial means of sense gratification. So there's drugs, and there's different types of products, and there's places like casinos and Disneyland and places like that, where they can just waste their money and their time in sense gratification for themselves and for their kids. Now, remember when I started talking about Tata, right? Now you're going to hear what Prabhupada says about Tata. It's in this lecture, and he says that because this is the cause of all unhappiness. People are suffering, and they are making plans. Maya Sukhaya. Maya Sukhaya means the happiness which has no standing. It's false. It's illusory. For this purpose, Bharam Udvahato Vimudhan. Big adventure. Big things. They are contemplating and planning. That is called Gora. Gora Rupa. Here it is called Gora, Santa Gora. If you go to some industrial place in a factory, iron factory, like Tata's, you will see how they are engaged in Gora activities, horrible activities. After all, you have to eat something, but they have planned a Gora, a horrible activity, very fearful, Ugra karma, useless work. By nature's way, Krishna has given us everything. You can simply work little, you get food grains. Krishna says like that. Krishna never says that you open big, fearful, horrible industries. You will never find in Bhagavad Gita that Krishna said that. For your livelihood, Krishna says very simple method. Anad bhavanti bhutani. Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 14th verse. Anna. You produce your anna, your grains. Why you are, planning big industries. The oil will come from America through the channel, and Arabia will refuse to supply oil. There will be power problems, so many things, one after another. But Krishna does not say that you do all these things, horrible things. No, he says, Anad bhavanti bhutani, you just produce food grains, and then most of your economic problems are over if you grow your own food. And bhavanti bhutani. Bhutani means all living entities. They will be stout and strong by eating food grains. What you want more? What more do you want? Anad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anasambhava. And if there is sufficient rain, then automatically it will be very easy to grow food grains. Parjanyad ana. And if there is no parjanya or rain, then your so-called tractor will not help you, or knowledge, or agricultural knowledge will not help you. You will have to depend on Krishna for rains. So here he started talking about Tata factory. He said it's a horrible thing. If you go into the factory, it's a horrible place to work, and he's got thousands of people working for him. How big is the company, the Tata company?
It's very big.
Huh?
It has a group actually. They have multiple companies.
I know. But how if you put them all together, how many people are they employing in their factories? And the other day at that program I did, I started talking about Tata. Boy, 935,000. Almost a million workers. That's huge, right? Yeah, with Jamshedji. Yeah. Okay, so you see, I'm not making this up. And Prabhupada's saying, look, all this is unnecessary. See, Krishna's plan is anad bhavanti bhutani. You just have some land, you have a cow or two, and you grow your own grains and fruits and vegetables. But he doesn't even mention fruits and vegetables. He says grains. Anna is what you actually need. You can live on anna and milk. That's enough. But if you want some fruits and vegetables also, you grow your own food and you're independent. You don't have to work all year long. You just work hard for 3 months. But India is so good, you can have 2 or 3 harvests in India in some places. Not everywhere, but some places. So and it's a very fertile place in some places in India. So, but even if you don't have 2 or 3 harvests, you just have 1 harvest, you have enough for your whole family and your extended family also. And so you don't have to work so hard, right? And if you get your family and they stay together, they all help each other. It's much easier than if you're alone, just you and your wife, right? And your kids. It's much harder to maintain. So this was the model that worked successfully for millions of years in India. It's only been destroyed in the last 200 years. Previous to that, most people in India were living in villages and they were self-sufficient. And they had their extended family all working cooperatively, right? And even the village, everyone in the village, even though they might not be all related, but they were all working cooperatively together. I mean, this is going to be one of the homeworks, is to go back 150 years and understand the educational system. This is before the British took over the educational system. So you can go back 200 years. Before they took over the educational system, you study the village model. Most of the people were living in self-sufficient villages. And you actually write an essay on what their life was like. And you'll see it was a very good life. And people were educated, even the poor kids were educated. And the educational system that they had was very good. In fact, this one British guy, after coming to India in the 1800s and seeing their educational system, he went back to England and started something like that in England because it was so good. And the British, they tried to ruin it, and they did ruin it, you see, in India. And this one British guy, he went back and started a system that was similar to what they had in India before the British tried to destroy it. So you see, we've been duped, we've been fooled, we've been misled by all this modern industrial production, thinking that this is the way that people are going to be happy. Now, you might have a nice house, you might have a lot of gadgets in the house, but what good is it? It's not going to save you at the moment of death, you see. And the houses they were building in the villages were built for gobar and mud, right? And so it was a green house, right? It's completely self-sufficient and it's completely green. There's nothing toxic in that house, right? So, but now the carpets and the shellac and the paint and so many things, they're all toxic in many ways, right? Okay, so let's continue here. Oh, actually, we're almost over. So this is a big subject. I'll continue it tomorrow. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the economic development and all this advance, but there is always a debatable question or discussion.
What?
There is always a debatable question.
Debatable question.
Yeah, or something like. So, for
So
example,
do you want those slippers?
Adi. So, like some.
Do you need those slippers?
Yeah.
Yes?
yes and no also. So it's like if we are going really in the snow where I can't go with my
you
bare
couldn't use
feet,
those slippers in the snow.
but I cannot go with my bare feet. I can't.
No,
I
but
can-
you'd have to have not those slippers. You would have to have.
I need
proper
something. Slipper
boots.
means it's a generic,
Boots,
right? So
yeah.
I can have something bare minimum. But the debate is like, so how we, the Adivasis, and then
What?
Adivasi means the tribals, let's
Yeah,
say, the
tribals.
tribal people, and then, so is that the living?
Is that the model?
Is that the model? Like, so
No.
they are living like just like without making any manufacturing the goods. They are very like simple living, right? I mean, but again, that is that the ideal one? Should we?
Ideally, well, that's why I want you to study what was going on 200 years ago in India.
But then 200 years is like not the very like going back. Like it is also advancement to some extent, right? So 200 years back is the advancement from somewhere we came and progress.
But the villages, most of the villages were self-sufficient at that time. Prabhupada talks about it. Okay, you can go back 300 years. I don't care, but
No.
go back to see what was the original model that sustained India for millions of years. Millions of years. You know, Lord Ramachandra is 1.7 million years ago. There's been people and culture in India for millions of years. And what was the model that sustained all these people?
Yeah, I agree that. But the question was, so tribal people they don't want to do anything.
Don't focus on tribal people. They were not necessarily inside the Varnashram system.
Okay.
You know, you're talking people like Guha. I mean, they were near the Varnashram system, but they did not practice it completely. You look at the people who are actually practicing Krishna consciousness, you know, in these villages for millions of years. Look at the model. What kind of houses did they have? What was their agriculture? You know, how were they producing enough food for their people? Obviously, they produced huge amount of food because you have, you know, more than 1 billion people in India. So they were producing a lot of food, right? And how did they do it? And what was the organization? What was the educational system? Right. When you go back, you know, 500 years ago, you have, you know, Annamacharya, you have Tukaram, you have all these people, you know, they were highly educated, and they were writing poetry, and they were building these gigantic temples, very complicated buildings. So how did they do it? They had architecture, they had science, they had so many things. So you're going back, and that was the culture that was sustained for millions of years. The culture we have, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable the way it's going. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Maharaj, I think his question probably stems from our contaminated understanding that, you know, somehow the society is evolving from the Adivasis, because that's what, you know, Prabhu, I mean, you can correct, but the fact, you know, what
don't look at the tribals. The tribals, like I said, were not necessarily in the Varnashram system. You look at the people that were in the Varnashram system.
Maharaj, isn't it true that actually this was the creation of the Lord? Because Maya Srishtam, you know, he says, like Lord says that Chaturvarna Maya Srishtam. So that means originally the entire society was structured around this itself, the
Yes.
Varnashrams. It's the people who kind of went astray from this society, may have lost the culture, may have, you know, ended up figuring out maybe other things, like, you know.
Yeah.
Isn't that true? Like, because I think that is the fundamental difference, because it's not like evolution, it is the starting point of how the societies were established, starting from, you know, Brahma's generation. Is that true or not?
Okay. I'm not quite sure what your question is, but all I said was go back 200 or 300 years and write down on a piece of paper what the culture was, how they were farming, how they were, you know, worshiping, what was their daily schedule. How do you know? How do you end up with a billion Indians in India? I mean, obviously, they had a very structured way of living that manifested. It's only in the last 200 years that it's changed, and dramatically in the last 60, 80 years or 100 years. So find out. I'm not asking you to do something strange. I'm asking you to look back to your ancestors, find out how they were living. Right?
My question is that I think in Bhagavatam it is given that we are all coming from Manu. But that's why we are called Manushyas.
Yeah.
Right? Which means that Manu has established the system of Varnashrama, or the rules for the society.
Yeah.
Which means that the original creation was exactly what 300, 500 years ago, whatever the sustained India for millions of years, was
Yes.
the original culture as established by the Lord. It is not something that people have discovered. It is the one that is established by the Lord as the original order of the society.
Yeah.
It is, if at all there is any degradation, it's actually because of the human greed and the contamination of the the three.
Okay, so go back and study it. Write a paper.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead. Microphone. We got to get a longer. I want. We have to buy a longer thing. I mean, this one is longer, but anyway, we buy another one that's longer than that. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna.
I have a question.
Hold it closer to your mouth.
So if like everyone like in the modern world were to stop like large scale manufacturing and like start like sustainable farming like for themselves, I
It has
guess.
to be a gradual development. You can't just say tomorrow everybody stop. It's got to be gradual.
Would you do you think that would still like be able to support the world's population?
It did for thousands and millions of years. The model is small farms owned by individuals, and they grow their own food, and they have simple houses made with gobar and mud and straw. And there's many people that do this even today. I mean, they'll drop out of society and they'll try and build a self-sufficient village somewhere out far away from the big cities, and they don't want to have anything to do with the big cities. I mean, you can look that up right now. You'll see that there are people that do that all the time here in the United States. They're not huge numbers, but there are a lot of people that do drop out of society and want to live in self-sufficient villages, and then sort of get a whole group of people together to make it easier, everybody working together. So the idea, it's called argumentum ad. In other words, to defeat an argument, to defeat a principle, you take it to a ridiculous extreme. Like if everything stops tomorrow, all the factories stop tomorrow, how would people transit to no, it's a gradual process. It's not like, we're not saying, all the factories should stop tomorrow. It's obviously that's not going to happen. But if you stop buying the products of those factories, it'll stop. Right? If enough people stop buying the products, it'll stop. But in the meantime, they build self-sufficient villages, they build up agriculture, and they build up cooperative communities. Then it's feasible that the whole change could take place.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's called argumentum ad absurdum. Take an argument to an absurd, extreme to defeat it. We're not saying that close all the factories now, but we're saying eventually, yes, you won't need them if you stop depending on all those products. Stop buying them.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. And Maharaj, in India as well, the next generation, they are getting educated and they are not taking up the farming as well. Majority of cases.
They're not taking up the
Not
farming.
taking.
No.
And the small farming model is getting more into trouble.
Well, because you can't make the big money, right? But you can have a much easier to have a spiritual life. You see, some people say, well, there's no more water left in Tamil Nadu. How are we going to do farming? There's not enough water anymore. Those Andhra Pradeshis are holding all the water. No, all those things will change if you practice Sanatan Dharma culture. Because then there will be a relationship between human beings and demigods. So this is explained in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The demigods are in charge of these supplies, of necessities like rain and sun and all that. So it says here in the Bhagavad Gita, in charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna or sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you, but he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. So everybody's a thief today. No one's thanking Krishna and his agents, the demigods, for all the things that they're supplying. So therefore they're holding back, or they're making the supply chain broken and sporadic. So it's much harder. Prices go up. You know how much prices have increased? I mean, there are a lot of people that don't look at Sammamish because people have money in Sammamish. You go to middle America, people are struggling just to eat nowadays. They have to decide whether they're going to put gas in the car or eat, or pay their mortgage. And this happened also in the 1930s. A lot of people lost their farms, lost their house, and they just ended up in a car with their whole family driving to California to start all over again. It was a mess. And that's when communism almost took over the country. There was a strong effect at that time. Many people were thinking maybe this whole system of capitalism doesn't work. So the only thing that saved the United States was the war. Wars, whenever there's a potential breakdown, they start a war so that they can have military discipline. Okay, so we'll continue all week long discussing the how to have a purified society, establish Krishna consciousness in the modern world. Haribol.
Maharaj, what was the reference for the lecture? The Sri Prabhupada
Yeah, that's
talking
a
about
really
Tata?
good lecture. This is the 3rd canto, 26th chapter, 26th verse. And it was a lecture Prabhupada gave January 3rd, 1975. This is an amazing, I didn't even get, like 5% of this lecture, because there was an introduction to it. So tomorrow we'll really get into it. Yeah. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, do the homework. Go back and see what the original model was. It sustained people for millions of years, not just a few years.
So recently we watched a video in Andhra Pradesh, in Sri Kurmam, which is a village which actually also, you probably know that there is a Lord Vishnu's Kurma avatar. So that near that area, some ISKCON devotees have created original culture village. So there's some videos and all. It's very inspiring.
Yeah.
There's some devotees that are establishing again the original way.
Yes.
to live, and basically the simple principle is the same thing, that everything that we need for sustaining is already provided by the Lord.
Well,
Without
if you follow Dharma, yeah.
yeah, so I think there's some
Build up this relationship with the demigods and Krishna.
yes.
They're the suppliers. They're in control of these things. The sun, the rain, the wind, the currents, all these things, they're in control of it.
Yes.
So if you please them, then they're going to supply these things and make it easy.
Yes, ma'am.
Hari Bol. Okay, who wants to sing? Go ahead.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bandhamui Savadhana Mate Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite Te Koriya Kya Arana kori ho mane asha
Arana koriya mane asa
Shri Guru Charana Rati Aise Utama Gati Jai Prasad Pure Sarva Asha
Jai Prasad Pure Sarva Asha
Jai Prasad Pure Sarva Asha
Jai Prasad Pure Sarva
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेद गाय जहर चरितो लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना हा हा प्रभु कोरो दोय देह मोरे पादचया हा हा प्रभु कोरो दोय देह मोरे पादचया एबे जाश कुशुक्ति भुवाना जय प्रभुपाद पतित पवना जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरा भक्तवृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरा भक्तवृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरा भक्तवृंद
कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरा भक्तवृंद
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajagacharya Astatara Satarishi Shishamal. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vedanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapura Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premananda. All glories to the Son of the all glories to the Son of the all glories to the Son of the all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi Hari Bol. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet in great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures.